What's going on YouTube? Taylor back here with another fun video for you. Today we're going to talk about and cover my top 10 favorite cards of all time. Okay, first up we have cards that couldn't exactly fit on my top 10 list, but they're cards that I love and hold dear all the same. First up we have Dancing Fairy. Now, don't ask me why I used a Wind Fairy monster in my Dark Warrior deck, but back in the day, this card ruled the proverbial playground. Basically, I gained 1,000 life points for as long as it was face up on the field, and this card just wrecked those matches back in the day. Next up, we have another kind of odd choice in Revival Jam.
It's time now!
Not the best card in the world, but again, back in the day, when I was dueling in high school, this card was just nuts. Paying 1,000 life points to bring back a decent level 4 monster was honestly too good to be true. Next up we have what is easily my very favorite equip spell of all time, which would be Black Pendant. Now, I love the fact this card has an extra little fuck you to the opponent when it's sent to the graveyard. They take an extra 500 damage. Fantastic card. Another odd choice here, we have Jam Breeding Machine.
Now, it won't come as a surprise to learn that jams contain sugar, but it may surprise you to learn just how much.
I never did get a decent enough strategy going with this card, but at least it helped me out in some tough positions back in the day. In what is the only trap card on this list, we have Nightmare Wheel. Oh man, this card has gained me so much advantage over the years. You know, it's too slow now, but back in the day, this card was just unreal. And that basically sums up the 5 cards that didn't exactly make it into the main top 10 list, and now let's get started with that main list. First up, we have a trap card that isn't exactly competitive these days, but back when I played roughly 2012, this trap card right here was just god tier. Solemn Wishes knew exactly how to turn the tide in the eve of battle. It was just too good. So actually we'll put number 10 down here. One of my absolute favorite dark monsters, and that would be Twin Sword Marauder. This guy inflicts piercing battle damage, and he was amazing back in the day. I honestly can't use him now. He's too slow and he's just not strong enough for a 4-star, but yeah, we've had some good times, he and I. Next, for slot number 8, we actually have a card that I still use this day in multiple decks, and I mean, why wouldn't you? Allure of Darkness. And you know, card advantage is such an important thing in this game, and getting 2 additional cards for the price of 1 and just 1 banish is it's too good to be true. Following that, in the 7th slot, we have a card that combos beautifully with Nightmare Wheel in Lava Golem.
It's time now!
Now this guy is great for quick spot removal of an enemy monster, and of course, inflicting an extra 1,000 damage doesn't hurt at all. In the 6th spot, we have one of my very favorite spell cards, and that is Pot of Duality. Now I know it only gives you an advantage of like 1 additional card, but I mean, it's too good to be true. You get to look at 3 cards and basically choose the best one, add that directly to your hand. Who could say no? Coming in for spot number 5, we have the always wonderful in virtually every Gravekeeper deck I use, Gravekeeper's Descendant. Now with this guy, I contribute one of my face-up Gravekeeper monsters and destroy 1 card my opponent controls, and that is just, it's a sublime move. Next up, we have a newer addition to my collection, which would be Solemn Warning. This card is just nuts. Pay 2,000 life points to basically negate a spell, trap, or monster effect, or when monsters would be summoned.
Tolerance doesn't live here anymore.
And it's one of the very best counter cards in my repertoire, and I cannot stress how amazing that card is. Next up we have what is definitely my favorite spell card of all time, and that would be none other than Fate Doll. Oh man. Forcing the activation of an opponent's trap card is just too good to be true. This card has won me so many duels. The fact that it goes right back into your deck instead of the graveyard is just honestly too good to be true. I've used that card probably close to 200 times, and my opponents hate it every single time. It's the best card in each of my decks. I have to have at least one per deck, without fail. Now, my second favorite card is one that I've used in my Chaos deck since the very beginning, even before I had an actual Chaos deck in play. I had what was effectively my Dark Warrior deck, and once I realized how good this bad boy was, I had to make a deck that benefited from him. I mean, there's no way I could pass up having 2 direct attacks in the same turn, or banishing cards. I mean, this card just wrecked every single duel I had. It was almost too good to be true. This card is nuts. I love you, BLS. Now, before we get into my very favorite card of all time in this entire game, I'm going to talk about 3 runners-up that basically have been heavily used in the majority of my decks, but they don't hold that sentimental value this very last number 1 slot does. Now, the first card of my runner-ups is Magical Stone Excavation. This card is a lot of fun. I mean, I've used it so many times, hundreds of times, to recycle any number of spell cards. It's just amazing. Next up, we have what is effectively my very favorite trap card of all time in Bottomless Trap Hole. Now, this card is just amazing. Anytime an opponent summons a monster, it's banished. It's gone.
It's been evicted.
You're not going to use that anymore. And following that would be one of the key monsters in my Gravekeeper strategy for the longest time, at least 3-4 years. Gravekeeper's Visionary.
It's time now!
Now, this guy isn't even the boss monster for that deck, and he wrecks. I've had opponents throw everything they have to destroy him, and with his amazing defense effect of just discarding a Gravekeeper to the graveyard to keep him on the field, where he also gains additional 200 attack, is just god tier. I don't know why this card isn't used in main Gravekeeper decks more frequently in competitive play, but that card is just amazing. Okay, that covers the first 9 monsters in my top 10, as well as 3 runner-ups that were pretty good, but not quite good enough. The top card in my top 10 cards of all time would be none other than Summon Skull.
Physical assault! Summon Skull! Attack!
Now, not just any Summon Skull, but this Summon Skull right here. This Summon Skull was gifted to me by my very best friend, Olszn, the guy who edits my videos, and he's such a great guy, and this card basically reflects our friendship because Summon Skull is...
Here's what I've got! The mighty Summoned Skull!
my favorite monster since the very beginning of my career as a duelist, all the way back when I was like 9 or 10 when the first starter deck Yugi came out, and I always wanted to get the top rarity, which in my eyes would be ultra rare, and no less, this is the exact one from the Metal Raider set, and he had to give it to me because it was just, I couldn't have a deck with Summon Skull that did not feature the ultra rare rarity. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun talking about my 10 favorite cards of all time. These are definitely some cards that I had a lot of fun with this list, guys, because honestly, these cards are just, some of them are competitive, some of them are absolute shit, but they all have some meaning to me in some way because I've used them at some point in my dueling career, and I don't know where I'd be if I didn't have these cards in my possession. They're just too much fun to use. But with that, on that note, take care, folks. Thanks for joining me today. Bye-bye.